Good afternoon and welcome. This is Spotlight Africa. We're coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. I am Uyai Imam. Today on Spotlight Africa, African leaders seek Trump support to develop resources at U.S. meeting. Ramaphosa opposes Trump's 30% tariff on South Africa. Liberian president issues official apology to civil war victims. Museveni to run again as Uganda's ruling party picks him for 2026 election. Plus, Kenya's president defiant backs security forces after deadly protest. These stories are all just ahead on Spotlight Africa. Stay with us. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. We're bringing you stories around the continent this afternoon. And our first stop will be the meeting of African leaders with the United States President Donald Trump, which held on Wednesday. Of course, hosted were the presidents of Gabon, Guinea Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal at the White House in Washington, D.C. The meeting focused on business opportunities as the African leaders sought partnerships to develop their resources. According to reports, during the lunch at the state dining room, Trump said the leaders hail from very vibrant places with very vibrant and valuable land, great minerals, great oil deposits, and wonderful people. Trump also hinted that the five countries were unlikely to face U.S. tariffs. At the meeting, Gabon's President Bryce Oligui Nguema told Trump his country was open to investment and wanted to see its raw mineral resources processed locally, which would require more investments. Away from that, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa, has opposed what he calls the unilateral higher trade tariffs imposed on his country by the US. Recall that US President Donald Trump announced on Monday that he would subject imports from South Africa to a new 30% tariff from the 1st of August. It is the only African state affected by his latest announcement, reflecting his strained relationship with Ramaphosa's government. In a letter to Ramaphosa, Trump said South Africa's trade relationship with the US has been, unfortunately, far from reciprocal. In his response, Ramaphosa maintained the 30% tariff is not an accurate representation of available trade data. Trump's decision is a huge blow to South Africa, and the US is its second biggest trading partner. South Africa's automobile and farming sectors had duty free access to the US market. Trump sent letters to South Africa and 13 other countries informing them of his latest tariff plans. In another development, Liberia's president issued a formal state apology to the victims of the country's two civil wars between 1989 and 2003 on Saturday during an official ceremony. Now, according to reports, an estimated 250,000 people died during the two conflicts, with many more wounded or psychologically broken by rape, massacres, or because they were mutilated or forced to be child soldiers. While the apology is a step in the direction of reconciliation, Liberia's leadership has long been criticized for failing to prosecute the perpetrators of potential war crimes. Prosecutions have taken place in foreign tribunals, notably in Switzerland, France, Sweden, and the United States, but none in Liberia. In 2024, Liberia's government, however, endorsed the vote to set up a long awaited tribunal of its own. The main challenge in the process is the funding required for the court, which has been estimated at $100 million. The decision to set up the tribunal has been welcomed internationally, with both individual countries and the United Nations encouraging the political will in Liberia to prosecute war criminals. Elsewhere, Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni has been confirmed as the ruling party's candidate for the 2026 presidential election, setting the stage for him to extend his nearly 40-year rule. At 80 years old, Museveni has led Uganda since 1986 after taking power as a rebel leader. In his acceptance speech on Saturday, he said he would continue working to turn Uganda into a high upper middle income country if re-elected. The announcement was made during a conference of his party, the National Resistance Movement. Museveni highlighted his role in bringing stability and progress to Uganda and warned against missing another opportunity for transformation like in the colonial era. Critics accuse Museveni of ruling with an iron fist. Uganda's constitution has been changed twice to remove term and age limits, allowing him to remain in power. His main challenger is expected to be pop star turned politician Bobby Wine, whose real name is Robert Kwailanyi. He ran against Museveni in 2021 but lost, claiming the vote was rigged. Wine has said being in a position in Uganda comes with harsh consequences, including intimidation and arrest. Another key opposition figure, Kiza Bisigi, remains in detention, facing treason charges, which he denies. Meanwhile, the next election is scheduled for January 2026. Moving on to the ongoing BRICS summit, where Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva addressed the second plenary session of the 17th BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro on Monday, focused on strengthening multilateralism, economic and financial affairs, and artificial intelligence. Alongside leaders and authorities from the bloc's countries, Lula called for an inclusive reform of the IMF and highlighted the bloc's efforts to develop faster, cheaper, and more secure cross border payment systems. Lula also stressed the importance of fair governance for artificial intelligence. BRICS was founded by Brazil, Russia, India, and China, South Africa, but the group last year expanded to include Indonesia, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the United Arab Emirates, as well as new members. The bloc has 10 strategic partner countries, a category created at last year's summit that includes Belarus, Cuba, and Vietnam. In related developments at a meeting with his Ethiopian counterpart Abiy Ahmed, Chinese Premier Li Qiang said the two countries are ready to work together to expand bilateral trade and investment and promote the sustainable development of the Addis Ababa Djibouti Railway. The two men met on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in Brazil on Sunday. Lee said the two countries have consistently supported each other since they established diplomatic relations 55 years ago, and said their alliance has long been at the forefront of China Africa cooperation. Lee said Ethiopia and China are both important countries in the global south, and he vowed to strengthen cooperation between the nations within multilateral groups such as the United Nations and BRICS. Abiy thanked Beijing for its consistent support and said he is looking forward to working with China to bolster cooperation in trade, industry, communications, tourism, and other areas. Meanwhile, bilateral trade between the two countries reached just under $5 billion last year, up from $3 billion in 2014. In a rather sad development, police in Kenya clashed with demonstrators during anti government protests as the authorities blocked major roads leading to the capital, Nairobi, and most businesses closed. According to government funded national rights watchdog Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, at least 10 people died on Monday and another 29 were reported injured nationwide. A police statement published on Monday evening counted 11 fatalities and mentioned that numerous police officers had been injured, although it counted far fewer injured civilians than the rights watchdog. Reports say protesters lit bonfires and hurled stones at police in roadblocks, and police fired and hurled tear gas canisters, injuring one demonstrator. Associated Press journalists witnessed an injured person being carried by protesters who were chanting against police. Kenyans had planned demonstrations July 7 to protest against police brutality, poor governance, and to demand President William Ruto's resignation over alleged corruption and the high cost of living. July 7, known as Saba Saba, is a significant date in Kenya's recent history, marking the first major protest 35 years ago that called for a transition from a one party state to a multi party democracy, which was realized in the 1992 elections. In a related development, Kenya's president on Wednesday broke his silence over recent anti government protests that left dozens dead, saying he would not allow anarchy in the country disguised as peaceful demonstrations. President William Ruto said enough is enough and urged police to shoot in the leg those involved in looting and burning businesses. Weeks of protests have rocked Kenya after a blogger died in police custody last month, angering many Kenyans. Tensions heightened after a policeman shot a civilian at close range during one of the demonstrations against police brutality. Thousands turned out for protests June 25, which coincided with 1 year anniversary of huge anti-tax protest, I beg your pardon. French Parliament votes to return sacred talking drum to Ivory Coast. We'll bring you details of the stories and more after this time out. Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned. Bringing you more stories on Spotlight Africa. In Chad, former Prime Minister and opposition leader Success Masra is appealing to French President Emmanuel Macron for support after spending 2 months in pre-trial detention. Masra's legal team has sent a formal letter to Macron urging him to speak out and intervene in what they describe as a politically motivated case. The lawyers accuse the French president of remaining silent and are calling for him to mediate and press for Masra's release. Masra is accused of orchestrating the massacre of 42 headers in the southern town of Madoka in May 2025. He has denied any involvement, calling the charges baseless and politically driven. According to Radio France Internationale, his lawyers allege that the investigating judge in the case was pressured by senior officials within Chad's government to order Masra's detention. They argue that the only piece of evidence is a 2023 audio recording in which Masra calls for communities in the South to defend themselves. This recording was made well before the events in question. The legal team denounces the case as a violation of Masra's fundamental rights and accuses the Chadian justice system of bias against the main opposition figure. Masra, leader of the Transformers Party, has long been a vocal critic of Chad's ruling authorities. With few options left within the national legal system, his lawyers are now seeking international support. They hope President Macron will take the lead. Meanwhile, France will return the sacred Gigi Ayokwe drum to Ivory Coast. This is as a result of vote in French National Assembly on Monday afternoon, which confirmed a similar vote in the French Senate in April. The past legislation allows for the historical artifact nicknamed the talking drum for being used to communicate warning message up to 30 kilometers between villages to be declassified and eventually transferred to Abidjan. Reports say the GG Actoye drum was taken from Ivory Coast by the French army during the colonial period in 1916. It weighs 230 kilograms and is 3 meters long, kept in various museums. The wooden drum was restored in 2022 following a return request by Ivory Coast 3 years earlier. In November last year, the governments of both countries signed a deposit agreement which paved the way for the valuable instrument's reinstitution. France's legislative process to return stolen objects like the drum has, however, been criticized as overall slow. To date, only 27 historical artifacts taken during the colonial period have been returned to their countries of origin, notably Benin and Senegal. Away from that, a South African top security official accused the police minister and the deputy national commissioner for colluding with crime syndicate, sparking public uproar. In an unprecedented move, General Nahil Makwanzi, head of the police in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, called a press conference Sunday and claimed that Senzo Mukono and Shadrach Sibiya had interfered with sensitive police investigation. He also alleged both men disbanded a crucial crime unit tasked with investigating repeated politically motivated killings in the province after it was revealed that crime syndicates were behind the killings. Makwanazi claimed his investigation showed that some politicians, law enforcement, SAPS, the South African Police Service, Metro Police, and Correctional Services, prosecutors, judiciary were being controlled by drug cartels and as well as business people. He said he had evidence supporting his claims yet to be made public. South Africa has one of the highest crime rates in the world, and allegations of corruption within the police are not new. However, it is unusual for high ranking security officials to accuse each other of involvement with criminals. Meanwhile, Mukono has denied Makwanazi's claims, calling them baseless. In a separate development, the United States has deported 8 men to South Sudan. The group included nationals from Myanmar, Cuba, Vietnam, Laos, and Mexico, all convicted of serious crimes like murder and sexual assault. They had either finished serving prison terms or were nearing the end. U.S. officials say their home countries refused to take them back, prompting Washington to send them to South Sudan instead. Recall that the deportation was delayed in May after a U.S. judge blocked the move, ruling that migrants being sent to third countries must be informed and given access to an asylum officer. But last week, the Supreme Court overturned that decision, allowing the deportation to go ahead. Photos show the men shackled on the flight, once in South Sudan's capital, Juba. They were placed under police and national security watch, but not handcuffed. A local civil society leader said they looked in good condition, but their legal status remained unclear. The case highlights the Trump administration's effort to expand deportation to third countries. Previous removals have gone to El Salvador and Costa Rica, and talks are reportedly ongoing with countries like Rwanda, Benin Republic, and Moldova. The US recently revoked visas for South Sudanese nationals, accusing the government of refusing to take back deported citizens. South Sudan remains unstable, with ongoing conflict and a US travel warning in place. Lastly, on Spotlight Africa, the World Food Programme says that over 40,000 people in South Sudan's conflict ridden Upper Nile region are desperately hungry. In response, the organization has begun dropping food by air, its first humanitarian aid delivery in the region in the last 4 months. The UN agency said some 32,000 people face catastrophic levels of hunger, and more than 1 million people in Upper Nile face acute hunger. Mark McCarthy described the WFP airdrops as crucial and critical to bring people back from the brink of famine. The agency has said the continued fighting in the region is hampering the humanitarian effort, as reaching thousands of displaced people poses additional challenges. Upper Nile has been the scene of fighting between government troops and armed militias that oppose the government of President Salva Kiir. The fighting has led to United Nations warning that South Sudan is again on the brink of a civil war. And that's all we have on Spotlight Africa, bringing you news all around the continent. This has been put together by Spectrum Television. Do well to follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, Spectrum TV Live. I am Uyai MM. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.